Hi, my name is Tara Kachaturoff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today, I have as my special guest Tom Borg of Tom Borg Consulting.
Hi, Tara. Boy, it's great to be here.
It's great to have you again on the program. And today, we're going to talk about something really near and dear to my heart, and that is being positive in a negative world. But before we jump into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and who you serve?
Yes, so I am a business consultant. I work with a lot of small and mid-sized companies. I work with the leadership teams in the area of communication, leadership, and helping create a more engaged work culture. I've been doing this for a number of years, over 25 plus years, and I especially like working with organizations that have a desire to improve and grow. That's what I'm about.
All right. And on the subject of this talk today, you've actually written a book called Being Positive in a Negative World. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was that led you to writing this book and, what it has meant to you over the years? I know this book came out a while back.
Mhm. I have to go back to my college days. I remember looking through some old notes I had in a notebook from my psychology class. And I remember one of the exercises they had asked us to participate in was to describe yourself and describe your outlook on life. And it was there I actually penned that I was the type of person that wanted to see the best in other people, that wanted to see myself grow, and as a result, just look at life with a little more positive perspective. And I was kinda surprised when I read that, like, maybe 30 years later, I found that notebook, but I guess way back then, I was already thinking in that direction. I think I've just done things to help support that as I've gone through my career and through my, uh, educational experiences.
And what was it that like actually prompted you to write the book? Was it something you may have been experiencing at the time, or was it, because I know you were a consultant back then, but what
Mhm.
was it that drew you to writing?
I just felt that people needed to know more about how to be positive. It's too easy to be negative. Of course, in most cases, people will tell you about all the worst things that happened over the last week, but you don't find a lot of people talking about all the good things that are going on, which far outnumber any negatives you might think are happening around you.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm somebody who struggles with that myself. I mean, every day I really have to work on that
Mhm.
because it's very easy for me to fall back into old habits and be negative and think everything's doom and gloom. So my first question to you today is when you're looking at entrepreneurs or business professionals, what's the real challenge that they're facing when it comes to dealing with or facing negativity? What's the real challenge?
I think the first thing is they have to start focusing on what type of opportunities or what type of outcomes they want, right? So if you look at what you want, and then you start looking at, well, how can I get there? What do we need to do as a team? What do I need to do as an individual? And that's where we start to look at creating our own blueprint. So when you have a direction or you have a blueprint to follow, it makes it much easier to get the results you're looking for.
And like today, why do you think this is like more critical than ever about having this kind of outlook?
Well, today, I think more than ever, we are bombarded by the negatives that just abound around us. Everything from social media to television to uh, people's podcasts to websites to just the daily conversations that you might hear around the water cooler. These things are pretty strong, and when you hear enough of them, or you have that type of an influence, it does tend to alter the way you see the world.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. I have seen actual newsletters that come out daily that are actually focused only on negative things, and one of them was kind of done in a snarky tone, and I started reading it, joking, snarky,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I after like about a week of that, I couldn't take it anymore. It's like, "This is making me really unhappy," but
Hmm.
somebody's built an entire empire around this,
Sure.
so, I guess to each his own, but it doesn't work for me, or my, I guess, sensitive, the way I'm made up. It does not
Hmm.
work. So, another question I have for you about this is that, I know we're focusing on positivity and negativity, but do
Mhm.
you think that the world is more negative now, or do you think it's our perception of things and that we're more aware of things? What do you think it is?
I think it's the latter, definitely. We're just more aware of things. It's so easy to get information today. You just people walk around with their in their hand with their phones. You just instant access. So that's I think one of the main reasons. There's always been good things happening in the world and bad things happening in the world. It's always been that way. I think now that you have a magnifying glass through social media or any other electronic device, it will focus in on these things much easier, much clearer than we have had in the past. Yeah, I should drop this little poem once read a long time ago, and that's kind of the way people see the world. So there's the difference between an optimist and a pessimist. The difference is quite droll. The optimist, the donut he or she sees, the pessimist, only the whole. And that's how a lot of people look at life. They look at the whole, not the donut.
And I just eat the entire donut because I love donuts.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like you take the good with the bad. That's the eating of the donut, right?
That's right.
That's funny. Oh my gosh. So let's talk a little bit about, let's unpack the idea of having a positive attitude. So
Mhm,
what do you actually mean when we're talking about positive attitude? Because that can mean different things to different people. But when
mhm.
you're thinking about it, when you're talking about it, and as you developed it out in your book, what does it actually mean? And what are you not talking about when it comes to being having a positive attitude?
I think one of the best ways to look at having a positive attitude is just how you look at your life, how you look at yourself. Do you want to be somebody that is always moving in the direction of what you want? Are you always the type of person that is looking for the type of people to be around that will help you, influence you, to make you feel good about who you are? At the same time, are you the type of person that other people feel good about when you're around? I think that's the mindset we have to start with. Okay, if that's the case, back to that blueprint idea, what do we need to do to make that happen? And typically, each day, there are things we go through on a regular basis that are routine. And if you look at that routine, that has an awful lot to do with whether or not you're going to stay positive or you're going to look at the best in life that day. And I don't mean to be talking about some Pollyanna type of a philosophy. It's just basic common sense. If you look for the best in the world, if you look for the best in other people, you'll find it. If you look for the worst, you'll see that too. So the key is what you got to make up your mind to decide what am I going to focus on? What am I going to do in order to help me create the kind of world I want to be in?
And it's I'm glad you brought up the thing about the Pollyanna attitude or,
Hmm.
pretending that everything's great when it's not. But personally, I've been in times in my life, and even recently where things are just really, really tough. And I kind of had to just fake it to get myself into a mindset. Like
Hmm.
sometimes, can you speak to that a little bit? Because sometimes we aren't really feeling it, but we're still going around smiling. I mean, many people, we
Hmm.
smile even though we're like in pain or we're sad or we're depressed or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about that a bit more?
Sure. So, yes, sometimes we have to, well, it's certainly something that's called self talk. I've heard it referred to in a number of ways self talk, soundtracks, whatever you want to call it. But that internal dialogue that goes into your head all the time, by the way, it's running 24/7. 24/7. So the point is, what kind of a soundtrack or what kind of a self-talk are you using for yourself on a daily basis? It's that internal voice, it's that internal coach, if you want to call him or her that. The point is, be aware of what you're saying to yourself. And now, how do you do that? Well, first off, you make it a point to make sure you're going to be influenced by things that are going to help you keep a more positive attitude. What are you reading? Really comes down to a couple things. What makes a person more positive than negative? I say one, people you're hanging around with. Two, the things you're reading. Three, the things you're listening to. Next, what are you watching? You see, these are all uh, inputs into our brain and it processes it and it adapts accordingly. So if you take control over what it is that's going into your head, you're in a much better place in creating the kind of world, creating the kind of life, creating the kind of health for yourself because we know that negative thinking definitely influences your body's response. Uh, Going back to the fight or flight approach to living, people, either you're fighting something, you're fleeing from something. Well, that's not the place for us to be if we want to stay healthy mentally and physically.
Yeah, and a couple weeks ago when we were talking about this and I asked you like, what do you do during your day? I was
Hmm.
really impressed because you control everything, your inputs, from the beginning when you get up in the morning to when you go to sleep. And I do something similar and I'm doing even better since we had that talk about this.
Right.
Um, but like I am so sensitive to things like if I watch the news for 5 minutes, I
Mm.
get so upset. Like I can't watch the news and I
Mm.
can't listen to certain podcasts and I can't even be around certain people. And I've
Hmm.
really had to make hard decisions about what I do. I don't have the constitution like some other people. They can like watch it all day long and it never
Hmm.
affects them. It
Mm.
affects me. I take everything
Hmm.
to heart, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Um, and yeah, and can you talk a little bit more, especially because of entrepreneurs and people running their own businesses, or even if you're going to the office every day, what
Mhm.
is this doing to our stress levels and our mental health? And I know mental health influences physical health, but can you talk a little bit more about things you've seen in the workplace or with people you've coached around these issues? Because I know you work in these issues in organizations as well.
Sure. Well, before we go there, Tara, I did a little research before I called today, and
Mhm.
one of the books I'm recently just finished reading, it's a great book called The Second Civil War, if you can see that,
Oh
by
yeah.
Peter Montoya. Very good book. He talks about how we can be more positive about uh, patching the differences that we have in this world today. Think about politics, you think about people's different religious beliefs, et cetera, et cetera. He gets into some really good things. But I do want to just share one part of this book because it addresses specifically when we're talking about when we're looking at the news media and what it does to a person's head. You probably read the book or heard of the book. There's one out there that's been out there for a while. If it bleeds, it leads, which means that news media love to lead with things that are going to get your attention. If it's blood and gore, people want to see that. It's crazy, but it's true. So, in any event, there is a formula that they use all around the country, all around the world for news media. Let me just share this. This is something he shares from his book here. So, uh, I got to read this just the way it is because it's that good. He says, here's one way to identify the difference. If you're receiving information about what has happened or is currently happening, it is news. Okay. Now, if it has not happened and someone is speculating on what might happen, it's opinion. Mhm. Media companies have hooked most Americans by creating a treadmill of future potential anxieties. Now, this is the formula. Watch the next real news story about a weather event, shooting, or political event that you will witness the same cycle. Here's the cycle. First, this is what happened. That's the news. Okay. Second, this is what it means. That's the opinion part coming in. Next, because of that, this might happen, and you'd better stay tuned to find out more. That's opinion plus baiting, right? Remember, they got a sponsor to support it. They got to make sure people want to watch the program. Next, oh my goodness, this is what we just further learned about what happened, and that could mean this might also happen. You better stay tuned. Now they're doing this opinion, sensationalism, and baiting. And then here the last one. Heaven help us. This is what the next expert says might happen. You best tune in tomorrow or else. Opinion plus sensationalism plus baiting plus hyperbole. See, there's a formula. It works very well to get and keep people's attention. We saw this years back when 9/11 happened. They kept running that video over and over again, that film clip of the towers going down. That traumatized a lot of people. It traumatized a
Traumatized
generation.
me.
Sure. So this can be very damaging. So we need to be careful with it. I can't tell you that you're going to screen out every bit of news in your life. You shouldn't. You should know what's going on, but don't you don't have to dwell on it. And typically, headlines are all you need to know about. Hey, if there's this nuclear holocaust, your next door neighbor will come by to let you know to be prepared. You see what I'm saying? So there's where I'm going with that. But now, back to your question about in the workplace. Well, when it comes to that, we've got to associate with the type of people that are more on the positive side, but at the same time, there's ways to divert conversations when they they start hitting off in the wrong direction. People start to talk about uh, something that's bad in the economy or something that's bad in the company, we start getting this gossip, and gossip, believe me, is a huge problem in most companies. One of the challenges I help my clients with is how to get around that, how to avoid it, eliminate it if possible. And the key is you need to know how to divert conversations. So when someone says something to you that is negative or is taking you off in the wrong direction, say, that's interesting. Um, by the way, and you just subtly change the subject. You go off in a different direction.
How's the weather?
Yeah.
Then they'll go down another negative thing like,
Yeah.
"Ah," you know?
Well, I heard it's pretty good in Florida right now. Matter of fact, Arizona, I was talking to someone there, 75 degrees and sunny. So yeah, what about the weather?
So when people have a negative mindset, can you tell me a little bit about how that affects what goes on in a company? So everything from business decisions to dealing with customers. Can you kind of address like when you're, let's just say you've just taken in a full hour of news and
Mm.
what's the effect? You go to the office, what happens?
Well, it's been
What are
said.
some of the negative things?
Great question.
Let's talk negativity.
Yeah, yeah. So uh, it's been said that there are some people that we know, they can just brighten up a whole room by leaving it. So the point is, there are all kinds of people that will come into your environment at work and they can bring you down. And believe me, negativity is a lot stronger than positivity. You get one bad person in the room who starts talking about this and that that's negative, it can bring the whole group down in a hurry. So that's where it's important. Now, make sure you hire the right people. If you have people that are constantly a negative influence on others, think about the effect it's having them in terms of their productivity, in terms of their ability to do their job properly, and just their overall ability to be a functioning human being. So I would use that as a definitely as a way to screen out people who you do not want to work for your company. If they have a bad attitude, that's something that you want to avoid at all costs.
And sometimes, you see it in how they make jokes, but they're kind of negative, and
Mm-hmm.
that's something to really watch in the interviewing process because you do hear it, you do hear things come through because I interview people for another organization, and sometimes you kinda can see it.
Mm.
When you
Right.
get them joking about something,
Mm-hmm.
they'll get into either like a snarky mode, and then that kind of is a red flag a little bit,
Sure it
um,
is.
um because they're that comfortable. Once you make them comfortable in the interview, they'll
Mm-hmm.
let their hair down, so to speak, and you'll be able to kind of see into them a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
um, and what they laugh at, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, that's kind of interesting. Um, so, there's more to the positive, negative thing than just the fact that we take this stuff in and it can affect us. We know that. But what about the constitution of a person? Like, you know, they come with their own stuff, and it's not necessarily all attributed to what they watched that morning, but it is. I mean, it is influenced by what they looked at, how they live every day, and how they view
Mm-hmm.
the world. But
Mm-hmm.
how do you can't really suss it all out. You can't really sort it all out, the person from the stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
can you speak a little bit about like what's really driving, like why do they keep glomming on to the negative stuff? Like, why do they keep pulling this forward into everything they do when they come to the office? They just keep going into it. And
Mm.
what's behind that?
Well, I think oftentimes people, quite frankly, they don't want to be disappointed. So what they do is if they can predict the worst things that can happen out there, in other words, they can talk about what the worst that's going to happen. It in a strange way, it helps them feel in control of things. You know where I'm going with that?
Yeah,
By not getting their expectations up too high, they're never disappointed. So if they can always just discuss things that are negative or going to be the worst case scenarios, it does not do anything to help the people around them, certainly. But the fact is, they're kind of creating a world for themselves where they don't want to be disappointed. And so what they do is they create the worst case scenario. And then, hey, guess what? If it doesn't happen in some strange way, they feel better about that. If that makes sense,
yeah, it
it's just kind of
does.
a way that people kind
It
of live their
does.
lives. So
It's a coping mechanism, except they live it out loud when they're at the office or in their families every day, and it's harder on the rest of the people because
that's a
they
good
aren't necessarily in that. world.
Correct. That's a great way of
Yeah.
looking. That's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
How they
That's
see the
interesting.
world. Yeah, two. It's like that old saying: two men looked out through the prison bars. One saw the mud, the other the stars. What are you looking at? That's what you're going to see.
Yeah, and I've had to work a lot on that myself. I mean, it's hard. I mean, if you guys, I mean, we're all entrepreneurs and this, the guests I have, I mean, there are ups and downs. It is hard to always be positive.
Of
I mean, it
course.
is rough at
Mm-hmm.
times. Um, and in those rough times, like if you could put together like a little toolkit for people, anybody, whether they're entrepreneurs, careerists, whatever, what are like three things that we can do daily that could be in like our positivity toolkit? What
Sure.
would you say is at minimum like what we have to do? Even if like things are super bad, like we've lost a loved one, we got to
Mm.
still go to work, the economy, we're worried about our job,
Mm-hmm.
they lowered interest rates again, like whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
What could we have in our toolkit?
Well, that's a great point, and there are, of course, there's real situations every single day for all of us that we have to go through some type of maybe a setback or maybe a loss, and of course, that's a cycle, and we need to experience that. Like what Kottmeyer said some years ago, he put a formula together. He calls it the 4 A's, and that is if something bad happens, uh, first A is admit that it happened. Two, accept that it's happened. Three, adapt or come up with a plan to get you out of that situation or to get through it. And then the last A is action. Take action. So again, it's accept, admit, adapt, and then action. So the point is, by being able to do that, you're going to have a formula for getting through those tough situations. So that's one thing. But the point is, first thing in the morning, you get up, you have to start talking to yourself, right? That self talk where you have some affirmations you want to recite. It could be something that's, hey, something good is going to happen to me today. Or I can't wait for this opportunity. I'm going to be meeting with Tara Kachaturoff on a program. So you look for things that you have highlighted that are going to happen the next day. Of course, it starts the night before, right? Set some goals for the next day. So you get up, you remind yourself what your goals are. But right after that, I'd be listening to something positive. Sure, certainly don't put on the news, right? But rather put on a pre-recorded audio message or maybe a download of something that you know is good that maybe you've purchased and something that's going to really help you stay on track. Next, I make it a point, Tara, I have a list of people that I like to call on a regular basis. And if it's one of those days where, I got to talk to my buddy Mark Tremper, who's one of the most positive people I know, I'll just give him a shout, right? And we talk back and forth. But so have people on your team that you can go to people, so to speak, that you can give them a call and do this on a regular basis. Don't do it when you get down. Do it before you experience those ups and downs that we all experience through life. So have that roster of people that you can reach out to and have a conversation with. And well, I tell you, it does a lot to boost up that endorphin production within your brain, right? Your brain kicks out these endorphins, makes you feel good. That's something you need to take control of. Is how do you create those? There's a number of things we can do. One is talking, being around positive people. That's very important. And same with the idea of having some type of an audio you can listen to or books that you're reading, right? These are all ingredients to that recipe of staying a positive and productive, results oriented person.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love all the things that you suggested because um yes, we have to internally make changes, but all these things are like external, and those are
Hmm.
the things we have to go marinate in,
Hmm.
we and they're so important. And one of them you said about talking to positive people. I
Hmm.
remember over a decade ago, I would be like 15 years at this point. I probably, yeah, I met with you. I We met across town, and
Yeah.
I had to share something that was just really the hardest thing in my whole life. And I remember just sitting there with you and crying and everything else, but I had to go to somebody who that you were the first person I told, and it was you have to have that person in your life you can talk to, who you can trust. And
Yes.
it's not necessarily a therapy thing, it's not necessarily those kinds of things, but It is so important, and when I think of people, of the people that I associate with, you are the most positive person I know, and
Thank you.
you are the person that I
Try to
went
be.
to. You know,
Thank you.
and it's I never really thought about that until you started bringing this up, but I love these things that you're saying because it does talk with start with our self-talk, and, all of these things that you said, I've worked on all of these and they do work, but it's something I have to keep doing, and
Of
that's
course.
everybody's gotta keep doing it because it's just otherwise it's roller coaster, and it still is even when you do it.
That's right.
But this is such a great toolkit, and I know you listen to a lot of things. You listen in the morning, you listen in the evening. I started listening to things again in the evening before,
Good.
bed, reading uplifting books. It's so
Mhm.
important to what we take in our eyes and ears and pull it in because
Mhm.
that's the support system. You build your own support system of positivity.
That's
Yeah,
right. And
so
Tara, you mentioned a very important point there. Before you go to bed is one of the most important times to make sure you're putting good, positive information into your brain. Same thing with the morning. First thing you get that nice, fresh, steady supply of good ideas or good uh, positive influences in your life there, whether it be books, audios, whatever. Same thing before you go to bed. Maybe it's affirmations that you're going to recite to yourself. Maybe it's some goals you're writing for the next morning, what that you're going to start to work on for the next day. So again, you should have a plan when you get up, what you're going to do to get yourself going in that day in a positive direction. Same thing at night. I should turn the all electronic devices off at least an hour before you go to bed, right? And that way you just have a time for yourself, a quiet time, and you're able to just focus on what it is that you want to do with your life the next day. And just you're preparing yourself. Yes.
yeah, and I think that's a great word is, um, when you say preparing yourself,
Hmm.
because that goes along with that word expectation, and I know when I expect better, I get better, but on the days I don't consciously think about expectation for the next day or the next week, it doesn't turn out as well. So
That's right.
expectation has been very helpful to me as well.
Hmm. Well, and you're saying it right there. We pretty much get from life what we expect.
Yep.
Matter of fact, I heard the opposite of that. I remember I was attending a lecture by one of the police chief at the time here in Canton Township, and he talked about crime, and we have one of the safest communities in the country, which is great. But he said one of the reasons we have that, he says, because you'll get whatever you tolerate. So
Yeah.
if you tolerate negative people being around you, guess what? You're going to get more of them. You tolerate being in a the fact that you want to be healthy and you tolerate that you have to do certain things to keep that health going for yourself, whether it's exercising and mental exercising and just being with the right kinds of people, then that's what you're going to get. You see, so we set ourselves up for this, and we get the results of what we set ourselves up for.
Yep, we absolutely do. Well, I loved having this conversation with you today, and I'd like to ask you one final question. If
Sure.
you could offer one piece of advice to entrepreneurs, careerists, whoever, about this topic, what would that piece of advice be?
I would suggest that you find a great book or a great audio that you want to listen to or read and let that influence you. In other words, make sure it's a book that or a piece of information that's going to help you stay positive. So be constantly reading, listening to some type of positive messaging that's going to allow you to keep yourself in shape, positive mental shape for the life that we've all been given, and we just need to make the best of it. But we have to take action and make that happen.
Well said. Well, I want to thank you so much,
Thank you.
Tom Borg of Tom Borg Consulting, for being a guest and talking about a really important topic that affects us all. And if you'd like more information about our program, please visit us at www.michiganentrepreneurtv.com. Please join me again in the future when I interview another enterprising entrepreneur. Until then, wishing you the best of business.